Thank you all for coming. I know it's a difficult time, and I know a lot of people told me that they wish they could be here, but they're teaching, and it's hard to complain about that. So appreciation to all of those who are off doing the noble business of the school. And apologies to all of you for having to reschedule this. As you know, I had an unexpected bit of eye surgery, but I seem to be okay, and I appreciate the good wishes that so many of you shared with me. And I will tell you that, just talking with Audie, you don't appreciate how much we do depend on these things until you can't do it. And so I'm grateful to all of you for your support. This is something that I like to do every year, to have a chance to talk with you all, just to share some of my thoughts both on the year past and the challenges and opportunities going ahead. But it's especially important this year because we're on the threshold of Maxwell's 90th year. And you could make every year an anniversary, but I do think this is an important opportunity for us both to celebrate the remarkable achievements of the 90 years. We are by far the oldest school of our type, and have a chance to use the next year to showcase that, both our past and our present, but also, frankly, to give us a chance to get a running start on the 100th anniversary and to think about what Maxwell ought to look like at 100 years, which will be a truly auspicious occasion, and to really make the plans and take the decisions we need to do now to make sure that we continue to be as vibrant, as successful as we have been over the past 90 years. And I'm going to come back at the end to some of my thoughts about that. But I see this very much both in terms of planning for this coming year, which I really welcome your thoughts and suggestions about what kinds of events and activities we ought to feature. But also really, I'm not about to launch kind of a formal process, but to really begin this internal reflection about who we are and what we're doing and how to position ourselves for that second century. As seems most appropriate to begin, I want to welcome our newest faculty members. I know many of you are not here with us, but just to remind us that we have several new members of the family, Yoon Suk Lee and Abdulaziz Shifa in economics, as well as Abdulaziz's wife, Marima, who's going to be a research associate here. Chris Faircy and Yüksel Shagan in political science, Sarah Hammersma and Yilin Hu in PAIA, as well as Mark Schmeller, who's going to be a non-tenure track appointee in history department. Great to have so many new faces here. It's what keeps the lifeblood going. But we also, of course, have to acknowledge the retirements. Dave Bennett, who was sent off in fine style this past year, Tom Kniesner, Dave Richardson, also much missed, Jeff Stonecash, Rosemary Larry, Larry Schroeder, and Len Berman. It's a partial departure. Len is back to Washington, but will continue with us on a part-time basis. We also, sadly, have some other departures that we need to recall. The tragic loss of Bill Duncombe. It was a very moving event. I know so many of you were at it and very pleased about the new memorial fund that's in his honor, and I hope you all think about ways that you can support that. Christina Merchant, who passed recently, and as many of you know, Guthrie Burkhead, the 7th Dean of the Maxwell School, and there will be memorial services scheduled for those in October and November in Hendricks. I also want to express appreciation to our chairs who've stepped down from the important tasks that they handled so well for so many years, Andrew and Chris, and grateful to the other Chris Himes and John Burdick for taking on the responsibility and the leadership of chairing the departments. As I've said so many times, it's really critical to the success of the school to have strong and effective leaders in the departments, and I've been grateful for their support. I also want to thank Robert Rubenstein, who I know is not here, because he's also teaching, for his leadership of the Faculty Council, and welcome Sarah to that new role. It's also an important piece of the leadership here at the school, and I've enjoyed my engagement with the council and look forward to working with you all going forward. Recruitment is a very important part of keeping the process going. I'm very committed to doing what I can to make sure that we continue to have the most dynamic and exciting faculty that we can here. It is the great and core strength of the Maxwell School, and we have several both chair and non-chair searches underway. As many of you know, we are actively courting a candidate to replace Len as the Moynihan Chair, and I have no news to report. Maybe others of you here can share your latest on this, but I remain hopeful that we will have, in the not-too-distant future, an incumbent for that position. I'm also grateful for those of you who worked on the Moskowitz Committee, the Moskowitz Chair search, Mexican-American relations. We have several exciting possibilities there. I hope to be able to make some announcements on this today, but we're not quite there yet. But the committee has worked very hard, and I can see our way through to a very good result potentially on that one as well. Other chairs, we frankly have had a difficult challenge in trying to fill both the Volcker Chair and the Fansteel Chair. Many of you have worked very hard to help on that, and I can only say that I remain committed, and we're going to have to think creatively about how we bring the kinds of people here that the donors envision for these important positions. I'm also happy to announce that we now have an incumbent of the Bantle Chair, Dave Van Slyke, who I know is also teaching right now, is not here with us, but Dave will be the new Bantle Chair, and I think that's a real tribute to the contribution that he's made, and very much in the spirit of the Bantle gift. Beyond the chair searches, we have 8 non-chair searches underway right now, 2 in economics, 1 for a health and labor economist, and 1 in microtheory. In history for South Asia. In political science, there are 2 positions, 1 in American politics and 1 in East Asia. In public administration, we have 2, 1 in comparative public management and 1 in nonprofit management, and finally 1 in sociology. So we'll be busy. You'll be seeing a lot of faces coming through here. And I really want to encourage people, not just in the departments, to participate in these. Go to the lectures, meet with the candidates. I want to reiterate the fact that I view each and every one of these hires as not just a hire to the department, but a hire to the school. And when I look at the candidates, obviously it's important to meet the needs, the teaching and research needs of the departments. But every hire needs to fit the broader mission of the school and contribute in a broader way. And I'll obviously have some thoughts about that, but the best way to really get to that is to have others from other departments, take a look at who's coming, think about whether these positions are people that you might work with, even though they're not in the department. I've made a particular plea to the center and institute directors to be involved in this. I want to hear your views on the candidates, but that goes for everybody. I really would like to see this as a whole of school effort on these recruitments, because I think our most successful recruits are people who do contribute, obviously importantly to the departments, but beyond that as well. So please take that seriously, and really, I welcome your thoughts and suggestions on that. We've had a number of great achievements in the course of the year, and if I can find a piece of paper that I want to draw on to talk about them. Yes, now where did I put it? Mike, I think I left the piece of paper you left me behind. And I want to congratulate, we've had award winners from a number of different efforts that you've all made. As you all know, Tina Nabachi received the Moynihan Award at the Convocation. We've also had several of our faculty, John Western, the Meredith Award, and others, and I want to congratulate all of you on that. A number of our junior faculty also won Meredith Awards, and these are really important achievements. I especially appreciate the opportunity to acknowledge the teaching contributions that people have made, because I think it is so important and often doesn't get the attention that it deserves. I want to reflect briefly on the support that we've received through our very generous supporters from beyond the school, from the many alumni and others who've made major contributions to the school. There are lots of them, and there's always a danger that you'll leave some folks out. But I think it's important to notice, first of all, that in the recently concluded Syracuse campaign, that Maxwell came in first in terms of the schools and colleges, in terms of the pledges and commitments that were made, $91 million. Which is really a tribute to all of you and to the work that you and your predecessors have done over the years to create this group of loyal supporters. I wish I could tell you that translated to $91 million in cash on hand. It doesn't quite. Most of these are pledges, but it does reflect I think, the strong commitment that people have to the Maxwell School. In addition, we've had a number of very important contributions over the most recent year. I want to thank the learners for their tremendous support for the Learner Center. Their generosity is really a model of what we look for in supporters of the school, and to Tom Dennison for his work in helping to set up the Learner Center. It really is a very important and generous gift. We've also had other important awards. Ron O'Hanley has recently established a significant award to support faculty scholars. And this is, I think, an innovative approach to, there we go, thank you, Kathy, your pieces of paper are left behind in my desk, to thinking about how we support people. We obviously have a small number of endowed chairs, but it doesn't allow us to really reach the broad range of contributions that the faculty make here. And so starting with this coming year, we will have the O'Hanley Faculty Scholars for the next several years, which will allow us to make modest but not trivial support of about $5,000 each for 3 scholars over a 3-year period, $5,000 for each year for 3 years, that then can rotate around the faculty, which will allow us to really reflect in a very material way our appreciation and acknowledgement of the work of others. And I also, as we begin the process of awarding these, I'd welcome your ideas on the kinds of criteria and considerations we should take into account. I'll obviously be talking to the department chairs, but I do want to think about how to make this something that really reflects the various ways in which faculty contribute to the life of the Maxwell School. Ron also has generously helped create yet another one of the Robertson Fellowships here, which allows us to leverage the money from the Robertson Foundation by getting an additional match for additional Robertson Fellows here, very much strongly in the tradition of the school and of public service. And that reflects what has been a $400,000 commitment by the Robertson Fellows Foundation for the Robertson Fellows programs. I see Stu is here. I want to thank Stu for his enormous generosity in setting up the fund in memory of Cynthia. It's a tremendously generous contribution, Stu, and really reflects your strong commitment to the school, which we're grateful. Molly Corbett Broad contributed $100,000 to name a fund in honor of her time in the economics department. For those of you who know her, again, another really wonderful example of the kinds of models that we want to hold up for others. And there are so many others, $50,000 from a former student who established the Fred G. Burke Fund in honor of his professor, who made everything after his time at Maxwell possible, Louis Kreisberg, who helped set up the Kreisberg Family Fund, and others who've been generous as well. Finally, and it's appropriate that I do it while we're standing here, although we haven't quite formalized all the paperwork, I hope to be able to formally announce very soon that this will no longer be PER, but will be the Strasser Legacy Room in reflection of a very significant and generous gift that Joe Strasser will be making following on the many other generous gifts he's made to the school. And in reflection of that contribution, we will be looking forward to an occasion for a formal naming ceremony here to reflect that. I should have said, by the way, in mentioning the learners, that some of you will know that Sid will be the recipient of the Ahrens Award this year from Syracuse University, which is SU's highest award. And certainly from the Maxwell perspective, no one deserves it more than he does. So just because I did neglect this before, just to be more specific, in addition to John Western on the Meredith Award, I want to congratulate Jonathan Hansen and Gretchen Purser, who were also winners of the Meredith Teaching Recognition Award this past year. Looking sort of at some of the other areas where we've had I think some important achievements in the past year, I want to pay particular tribute to Paul Hagenlow and all of those of you who've been involved in setting up the new Citizenship and Civic Engagement major, which is now up and running. with offices on the 4th floor here at Maxwell. This fall, we'll welcome 27 sophomores across a full range of social science majors and a few students from other majors. Paul has done a yeoman's job in setting up an initiative which is so deeply reflective of what the mission of Maxwell is about. And thank you for your leadership on this, but so many others of you who played an important role in this. And I think it reflects not only a commitment to this issue about how we deal with citizenship, which I will come back to at the end, but also the strong commitment that I and so many of you have towards the undergraduate teaching mission here at Maxwell. And I think we've seen over the last couple of years a real new degree of energy that so many of you have put into undergraduate teaching. It's something that I feel very strongly about. It's at the foundation of all the other things that are possible, and as you've perhaps noticed from looking at the very generous donors to the Maxwell School, so many of them come from our undergraduate teaching. So it's an investment well worth it in many ways, both in terms of shaping the future and shaping the future of the Maxwell School. We've had a number of important initiatives over the past year among our institutes and centers. Very excited about the launch of the Aging Institute, which is now up and running. Looking forward to an event this early winter to really give a public profile to the Institute, as well as to have a public recognition of the Cantor Professorship, which is an integral part of helping get this up and running, and my particular appreciation to Janet for the work of getting this underway. It's already making a big mark, and I think is a very important part of our future. As all of you know, Len has taken over the leadership at CPR. Thank you, Len, for your leadership. And by the time we gather next time, we might even have a new name for CPR, or at least a modification of the name. But meanwhile, CPR does remain at the center of so many of the exciting initiatives and work that's done here, and really is a glue across so many different parts of the Maxwell School. So grateful for you and all of those of you involved in CPR. As I mentioned, we now have the Learner Center. Tom and I have had very productive discussions with the learners in recent months to talk about how we really build the Learner Center into a key activity at the Maxwell School and try to develop its mission in a ways that complements other activities and really brings an interdisciplinary perspective to our work on public health. More broadly, you know, there are obviously so many of these different centers remain kind of the way we are able to harness the interdisciplinarity of what we do at Maxwell. So to Peg and Bill and Grant especially for the very exciting program you put on at the advisory board meeting. It was an exciting way of showcasing some of our activities here. Pete, Catherine, Keith, and Stu, all of you involved in providing leadership in the centers. It really is an important part of what we do here. Also very excited about this model that we are building on here that began in some ways with Charlie Benjamin and the Near East Foundation, and now with Bob Christian and the Boulder Foundation, of trying to harness our engagement with others and trying to build new models that create opportunities not just for research but also for student engagement in the work in the field. And I think this is something that I encourage all of us to think about as ways of trying to leverage what we have in terms of capacity here, working in partnership with others. I think it's a great set of opportunities, and I look forward to going down with Charlie to the NEF board meeting in New York in just a few weeks from now. On the issue of centers and on the center front, building the infrastructure for research remains critical, I know, to all of you, to your ability to pursue grants, to undertake the research that makes you so successful as scholars and researchers. And we have, in addition to the long-standing quality work that's come out of CPR, we have two very important new initiatives that are now either underway or getting underway. First, as many of you know, since we've had a long-running discussion of this, we are now launching a new institute on qualitative and multi-method research being led by Colin Ellman, which really highlights, I think, and complements the work that's already going on at the Maxwell School, but is an exciting area for us, which has already attracted a lot of attention outside the school, and I do think offers an opportunity for deep collaboration across all of the departments at Maxwell. And I encourage you all to, as we have done in the process of trying to scope and develop the idea of this institute, to sit down with Colin and Mike and I to think about how we can make sure that this really is an all-Maxwell enterprise. But I express appreciation to Colin for his leadership up till now and in taking this project on, and indicate my strong support for the effort. In addition, we are at a somewhat earlier stage, but an exciting stage, in forming a center on census research data, working with Mary and Len to, again, think about an opportunity for us to really become a focal point for not only scholarship by people here at Maxwell, but around the country and around the world. And I think these are the kinds of things that really continue to make sure that we have the kind of profile and impact that we hope to have. And so thanks to all of those involved in that initiative as well. And as I say, it really is a chance to both strengthen collaboration at Maxwell, but also beyond Maxwell. The last area of initiative that I want to talk about is one that many of you have spent a lot of time on, and I know Mike and I have spent a great deal of time on. And this is the question about Maxwell's presence in Washington, D.C. As we've discussed in many different venues, I believe it's very important to make sure that we are not the best kept secret in the world. And while there are many different fora outside of Syracuse and the Syracuse area in which we have an opportunity to project this and to make the world better known about our work and to provide opportunities for our students, it still remains the case across a broad range of activities of Maxwell that Washington has a unique importance, I think, and a unique set of opportunities and potential. We've been present in a minor way through the courses that we offer at Greenberg House and through the occasional set of programs and activities that we do there. But we've never really, I think, made a systematic attempt to make sure that both for our students and for our faculty that we have the kind of platform we need to have the impact that I think is going to be so crucial for our future. But I'm happy to say that we've had an opportunity come our way, which is now being finalized. And while we have not, I can't make a formal announcement because it's not finalized. I'm extremely optimistic that this will come to bear. And this is a new partnership with the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington. There are two dimensions to this new initiative. First of all, CSIS is about to open a new facility on Think Tank Row in Washington on Massachusetts Avenue between 16th and 17th Street. And the development of this new facility offered us an opportunity for us to essentially relocate our own activities away from Greenberg House, which, although it has proved valuable in its time, is limited both in geography and in technology and space in terms of what is possible. And so beginning sometime this fall, when CSIS inaugurates the new building, we will begin to move our both administrative and teaching activities into the new facility. It's a very exciting building. Not only will it offer an opportunity for us to have offices for administration and for our faculty to work in a centrally located area, but it has fabulous teaching and conference space. And we've been able to work out a very attractive and financially very attractive arrangement with CSIS that will basically allow us access to their facilities during the evenings and weekends without additional charges to the school beyond what we'll be paying in rent for the office space that we're taking on there. And so, and this is, as you can imagine, in terms of technology, state-of-the-art facilities that will not only allow us to use the technology for activities in Washington, but also to allow us to harness and tap the ability to use resources in Washington to teach here, because we're going to be able to use the collaboratory and other facilities here to take advantage of speakers, teachers, and others who can be in our facilities in Washington, but be engaged in real time with our students and faculty at Syracuse. This offers opportunities across all of the teaching spectrum that we engage in, undergraduate, graduate, and executive education. But this is more than just a rental agreement that we envision with CSIS. In addition to having offices in their building and taking advantage of their facilities, this is also the opportunity to build a research and teaching partnership with many of the scholars and others involved with CSIS. And how far we take this really depends on all of you and where you see the opportunities to work with others in cognate fields with CSIS to begin to do things like offering courses, like offering conferences and symposia. There's tremendous enthusiasm on their part, and there's no formal commitments or formal limits in this respect, but it really is an invitation to begin to think creatively about how we can use this partnership. It's not an exclusive relationship, doesn't mean that we can't partner and do things with other institutions, both schools and think tanks in Washington, but it is a very special platform that I hope that we can all take advantage of. The formal launch of this will come sometime this fall when CSIS inaugurates the building, and we'll begin to start offering the classes, our Washington-based classes, in the CSIS facility in the winter semester, or the inter-semester, and then for the winter going forward. And I'm happy to obviously answer any questions or get any thoughts you have about this once I've reached the end of this talk, which will be soon. So I see this, as the vanguard of, more creative thinking generally about how we engage in the world, and yet at the same time preserve the strengths that have come from the very strong community that we have here on campus. And I think, I certainly recognize from my time here, and I think you've all made very clear the value that you attach to the sense of community we have here. And so going forward, we need to think about initiatives like the Washington Presence, like what we can do with the Fisher Center, which is Syracuse's new facility in New York City, and elsewhere in partnerships with other institutions, in the context of making sure that on the one hand, we continue to build on Maxwell's enduring strengths that have gotten us to the 90 years, but also keep pace with the times. And as we think about this exercise in about the next 10 years and the next century after that, I continue to believe that the core strengths remain valid for Maxwell. The idea that we are a school that builds on both our professional programs and our professional degree and non-degree programs and our academic and scholarly programs. The deep commitment we have to interdisciplinarity, the very strong sense imbuing all of our work of public service, and the sense that we value both the knowledge we generate and the opportunity to use that knowledge to make a difference in the world. But I do think as we think about these core values, we have to answer some very fundamental questions about how we sustain those values, and particularly the challenge of recruiting and retaining the best faculty that we need to go forward. As I mentioned, we've seen both some successes but some challenges in that respect, and we need to think hard, and I look forward to engaging with all of you on how we do that in the future to make sure we have the best and most exciting and dynamic colleagues here at Maxwell. Second, how do we maintain the strong sense of community, not only among the faculty, but between faculty and students and staff that we currently have in the face of both the technological changes and this whole discussion of online learning and distance learning, as well as the financial challenges that it represents, because what we do here and the human cost of this is costly, and we recognize as part of the Syracuse community that our ability to continue to generate increasing revenues from tuition is simply a thing of the past, and that students have reached about the limit of what we can reasonably charge in tuition. And we've also reached close to the limit of what we can do in terms of traditional teaching within the space and the faculty size that we have. So how do we maintain the sense of community, of engagement, of direct involvement that we have here, and yet try to harness technology and other tools to keep pace with the future? And then finally, how do we adapt our programs, our degree programs, our non-degree programs, our activities on campus and elsewhere to changes in the world, to the increasing power and influence of globalization and internationalization? What do we need to do to our curriculum, to our program, to the composition of our faculty and our activities here that reflect those changes? This is an ongoing process. It's not something we do overnight and go in a stepwise sense of change to other things. For example, the new master's program in economics, I think, is an example of the kind of evolution that allows us to reach a new audience, to reflect changes in the world of and practice of economics and to tap, frankly, another important source of revenue. As many of you know, I've been interested in looking at the question of advanced degrees in international affairs and security studies and how we might find a niche there that draws on the strengths of the Maxwell School, and particularly our interdisciplinarity, to offer new kinds of degree programs for a next generation of students, some of whom will go into academia, but many of whom will not. I think we need to have a deep reflection on making sure that the programs that we have are the ones that we want to have, not just for today and tomorrow, but going into the future. And I want to end on reflecting as we go into this 90th anniversary and preparing for the 100th, to this core question about the role of citizenship in the Maxwell culture and experience. Many of you perhaps have already had a chance to sample it, but I commend to you Ralph's excellent history of the role of citizenship and citizenship education in Maxwell and the various ways it's been understood and interpreted. And I want to read to you from the conclusion of Ralph's sort of monograph, Ralph, whatever, I'm not sure what you'd like us to call it. But he says at the end, the Maxwell School had endorsed again, this is now coming into the 1980s and 1990s, its historic purpose. But a century-old tension remained. Should the essential perspective be one of nourishing, engaged, parentheses, good citizenship through the careful study of social science data, of teaching methodologies of research, and of practicing public affairs as, quote, real-life participants in government? Or should the essential perspective be, as Stuart Brown had proposed in 1948, one of, quote, increasing the understanding of democracy, focusing on the ability of the individual citizen to apply democratic principles in critical evaluation of problems of public concern, and instilling some understanding of the perennial conflict of ideas concerning the nature of humankind and society, which underlies many contemporary problems. And that's how Ralph ends the piece. I'm not perhaps as persuaded as Ralph that these choices are in deep tension, but I do think it is important for us to explore in a thoughtful way what the citizenship in our name and in our culture means going forward. How do we continue to embrace this idea that we are about our own engagement in the world as scholars, as practitioners, and as teachers, and continue to make sure that the contribution that we make fits that very long and very valued tradition that makes us unique among all schools in the country, and I would argue in the world. Whether we, through the new civic engagement major, through positions like having a community geographer at the Maxwell School, to our institutes and the work that they do, and our graduate professional programs, to initiatives like the Tanner Lectures, which is an opportunity for us each year to reflect on the role of citizenship in the life not only of the school, but of the world in which we live. And to think about how we can create new ways of defining this mission and this role as we think about our next 100 years. So thanks for your attention. The floor is open to any and all questions, comments, and suggestions. Thank you. I know it's always a challenging environment, but feel free. Please.
Could you see us having a new building by our 100th anniversary?
No. And I say that somewhat categorically for the following reason, which is we need one, for sure. We need more space. But I think there are things we need more. And my priority for fundraising is to support the faculty and students here. And the capital cost of a new building is very high. I did this when I was at Texas. And I would like to persuade donors and others that the most important thing is to make sure that we have competitive salaries for our faculty, that we have support for research, that we have the fellowships that we need to attract the kind of students we need, PhD students, master's students, that we can develop the kind of programming that we need. And that will consume what I think are the reasonable range of resources that we can tap. Now, if somebody walks in the door and tells me, I'm not interested in any of that, but I'd love to build you a new building, I would not be averse to it. And I'd be interested, obviously, in all of your thoughts. But my own sense is that what we most need to sustain our excellence and our competitiveness will be investing in people and program. And I don't want to put that in tension with what is a very costly demand for capital growth.
Can you talk more about the cooperation with CSIS? Like, what will be the first thing we do together, or what do you expect from this cooperation?
You know, again, I think I mean, I know one thing, as I've learned for now my second time around as a dean, is that these things only work when they're driven by the people who are going to be part of it. So it really largely depends up to you. I hope that you may already have colleagues that work there. There may be people that you'd like to work with that hasn't come about. It won't surprise you that I already have some ideas. You know, we've had an effort, as you know, a priority for me, and I think appropriately for the school, is to strengthen our work in regional studies. And I see our partnership with CSIS as an enormously exciting opportunity to do that. Across the board, CSIS has significant capacity there. Early on, there are going to be some very good opportunities with respect to East Asia for us to collaborate. I have already worked very closely with a number of the scholars at CSIS, and I will be participating in a symposium that CSIS is putting on in Tokyo in October. So there's one concrete area where, in my role as a scholar, I'll be teaching East Asia, contemporary East Asia issues this spring. So I anticipate, you know, working with people like Mike Green and Victor Cha, Bunny Glazer, and others to try to both build some coursework for us here and also to think about some research collaboration. But this will only work, you know, again, if you see opportunities where you see, you know, people working on issues. I mean, as I say, there's a tremendous range here. CSS is a great program on global public health, for example. I'd love to see us try to figure out whether there are things that we can do there. A number of you are working on global public health related issues. They have a very strong conflict prevention program, and so there's a possibility for Park and others, I think, to work and partner with CSIS. There are just so many different areas. It's a very big institution, so it has a lot of potential. But it will be driven from, you know, the ground up and from the individuals who see the opportunity to do that, have exciting ideas. I mean, you know, obviously will be in a lot of contact with John Hamre, the president, to try to propose things, but neither he nor I can really carry the ball in this. So to the extent this really takes on life, it'll be because there are those of you out there who see the opportunity to take advantage of this as a partnership. And again, not to the exclusion of others in any respect. I don't think any of us see it in that sense. It's a non-monogamous partnership, but it is one, I think, where there's an opportunity to really take advantage for them. I know are very interested in trying to strengthen their engagement in the teaching side of things, and for us to work with them on research and policy-related activities. Ralph, you got any other reflections you want to share with us on citizenship? Mary.
I don't know if I need the mic. I'm very interested in your talk about community and about CSIS, but I'm a little perplexed as to how we actually do that. How do we take these abstract or sort of, you know, innovative and exciting ideas and really get people involved in them? I mean, I can go back to my office right now, look at the CSIS website, and say, wow, there's somebody I'd like to meet. But how does that actually happen? That's one side. The other side is about building community in the school. I think that we need to pay more attention to it. I think we have it, but I think it's something that we lose at our peril. You reaffirmed your commitment to it. And I wonder if you have any ideas about how that happens and how we can really continue to build it. I mean, I know I have some ideas, and I think other people in this room may have some ideas about how we make this the exciting place that students and faculty want to come to. And as someone who has been on numerous search committees recently, I share your concern about getting those exciting colleagues here, and I think we have to really build it from inside. And I'd like to ask your thoughts about that.
Well, I think the two are related. I mean, I do think we have to take a page out of what our students constantly remind us of, which is that there are different ways to build communities. I mean, face-to-face is an important part of it, but there are other ways to build communities, and we're just going to have to do that. We're going to have to develop a sense of community that includes some people who are not physically always here. Many of you have close research partners who work at different institutions, and you have close collaborative relationships with that. We have to think about both how we do that as individuals and how we do it as institutions. I think specifically with CSIS, I can invite people from there to come up. You all will have plenty of opportunity to come down. We can put together, little sessions with like-minded people on both sides, and it's easy to facilitate, where they come up and visit us here and get to know some of the work we're doing, where we go down and visit them there. There are lots of ways to do that. But, we have to think about, how we develop these virtual connectivities. We are in a world in which, we can FaceTime and we can engage and we can, and the beauty of the technology that will be available there is that, this is now, I just think, technologically more satisfying. And so it will be possible. Yes, it's, all things being equal, it's better to have somebody who's physically here and teaching. But if we have the connectivity that allows real engagement, where somebody's teaching the class from a state-of-the-art facility in Washington, but can engage in a back and forth with students, and then have FaceTime access offline to be able to engage with students, there may be some things that we can only do by having that. And I think we need to do it and begin to think of ourselves as a community that has those deep relationships. I think it's one of the advantages of having special partnerships, like with CSIS, or as you know, I've been trying to develop with Tsinghua, or that we have, through the Atlantis program in Europe, because you can have all the onesies and twosies, but if we have a little bit more of an institutional framework, that can facilitate it. If you have a preferred partner and a set of partnerships, if we can put on conferences together, and having a physical facility to support that, I think will also help build that. But I also recognize, that CSIS is only one part of the substantive space. There are a lot of you who are working on issues that CSIS doesn't work on, and I don't want to. If you're working on urban studies, I know you have mixed feelings about Brookings, but for urban studies people, there are things that we can do there as well. And so we have to, and frankly, in terms of attracting people and students, to get the students, we have to make them feel that they can get the richness of being part of this community, but not be isolated from other things that are attractive. And I don't think I'm telling anybody any secrets that, when we talk to graduate students, especially in the more professional programs, the first question they worry about is, well, we're not in Washington, we're not in New York, we're not in Europe. How do we connect to that? And I think we have to be able to offer more of that. And we're going to have to find ways to husband the community here without, having this kind of medieval sense that it's all within the cloister and that we can't do it outside that. I know it's challenging, and I know that there's anxiety about it, but I'm convinced that we're just not going to be able to attract either students or faculty if we don't have a diverse set of means of building the community that are here. But again, it is the community. I don't want us to be turned into a school that has a bunch of adjunct professors who have no connection to each other and little connection to their students. But I think there are ways that we can bring in people who can't physically or won't physically move for family or financial or cultural reasons to Syracuse, to make them part of our community. And, for those of you who know, in some of the conversations we've had around the Moskowitz chairs, we're looking at a very interesting model for that. There are other people and other ways of building those relationships. And that will be something that I will take into account in terms of thinking about how we engage with others. But I think we have to make sure that we have open to a range of possibilities that, in addition to kind of our favorite canonical version, which is here all the time, full-time, physically present. Anybody else? Again, I hope you'll give some thought to activities that you would like to see for the 90th anniversary. This will be a year-long series of events culminating next fall, so we're just in the planning stage now. There'll be some obvious ones, with advisory board meetings, but I'd love to see some conferences, symposia. I'll find some resources to support some of these things. I think some of our donors would be open to that as well, so they don't have to be cost-free. I can't promise the world, but really let's try to take advantage of this to showcase who we are and what we do and remind people of what this is about, as well as the challenges about how we take it forward. Anyway, thank you all for coming, and have a great semester.